might run out of juice again. All right. It is being recorded anyway, so yeah, let's just wait a little bit. If nobody shows up, that's it. We're just recording it as if nobody's watching us. I think actually we can start doing that.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, it says recording here. Okay, that's good. All right. So that was a disaster, right? But anyway, we're very persistent, so we're still going to continue even after take 4. Okay.
Okay, from the top. Okay, so hello everyone. Hi there. Hello. So should I just start?
Yes, just start.
All right. So my name is Judete. I work at the same company that Julia works. I'm 25 years old, going on 26. I come from South Africa, and I have been living in Vietnam for almost exactly 1 year. So just to tell you a little bit more about how I got here, about a year and a half ago, almost more or less, I decided that I was ready to see the world, start traveling, but I didn't want to just go on a quick holiday and go back when my money runs out. So I invested in my TEFL certificate, and I did it through a very well-known university in South Africa, an actual in-class TEFL where I met lots of other aspiring English as a second language teacher.
Sorry, did you know beforehand that you needed a TEFL?
Actually, I wasn't 100% sure, but as I did more and more research, I found out that's probably the safest bet. You could even potentially earn more. In fact, that's how it is most of the time. If you have your TEFL, your teaching certificate. That's what a lot of the companies.
And was it useful? Like, did you find it?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I really found it useful. I never actually thought that I would be a teacher, and teaching seemed a little bit abstract to me before I got involved. Hello.
Hello. We have 2 viewers. Yay! We're popular.
And yeah, absolutely. They gave us a lot of training. They answered a lot of our questions. And, it's very difficult to imagine how you would be able to communicate with people with such a language barrier.
Okay. Yeah. So can you say that you actually like you're applying those skills now at your work in your teaching?
Yes, definitely. I'd say a lot with the student management as well. That is something that definitely happens with experience. And of course, it's a little bit more difficult because you're teaching young children who only know very, very basic English sometimes. So you need to have some tactics where you're not relying so much on language to get your point across, but more like symbols, drawing things on the board to make them understand food behavior. Not so good.
All right, we're definitely gonna touch upon this topic because I think that's is what worries a lot of people. Like, how on earth? Wow, we're getting more popular. Like, how on earth is it possible to teach people, or actually students, or even children that do not? Woo! Hello. Welcome. Yeah. All right. So let's go back. Hi. I'm just gonna. Can I mute? Can I mute? Okay, you guys can mute yourself. Right. Okay. So you told us that you chose Vietnam because you felt like it's gonna be a more local.
Yeah, I felt like Vietnam, a little bit more sort of older experience too, and even has done it as Thailand. Not to say anything wrong with going to Thailand, but just heard over the years there so many people were doing it, and the market sort of
One question. Can everybody see and hear us this time? I'm so worried again. Yes, yes. And everybody mute your microphones. That's true. All right, but can somebody tell us? I don't know. You can just say it, or you can text it, whatever. Can you see us now?
Yeah, the connection is perfect.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, the connection is perfect.
okay,
Thank God.
great.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you. Thank you
I
so
cannot
much.
believe this. I thought we were like cursed or something. All right, so we can just go on. Okay. So could you please tell me what exactly did you do before moving? Like what sort of preparations, like what sort of maybe precautions did you take? Did you do your research? I don't know. Did you find your job beforehand? Did you organize your accommodation? Like what did you do before moving?
So yes, definitely the advice I got from friends and also my family, was to definitely find a job before I moved over, because I realized like once you land in a new place, especially somewhere as different as Vietnam or Asia, you're overwhelmed by culture shock and trying to get yourself somewhere wherever you need to go. So I thought prepare as much as I can before the time, so that when I get there and I get hit with everything, just make sure I can prepare as much as I can.
Was it the right decision? Is it not to us? Oh no, sound. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So just figure it out.
Okay.
All right.
So what I did was I asked the contacts that I had, other teaching friends, about companies that they could recommend. I also found one or two recruiting companies, and they put me into contact with someone to get an interview.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, before I had my actual interview, I researched the company. I Googled them to see, are they an actual company, because there are scams. And then other than that, once I was satisfied that the company was reputable, I also started watching a lot of YouTube videos on, the nice things about living in Asia, and also what they don't tell you, or the difficulties, because it's not always going to be easy. So I definitely found inspiration from a lot of bloggers and vloggers and that kind of thing, and really weighed up the pros and cons and made sure I was aware that it was going to be a big change. So
would you say you definitely recommend everybody who is planning to move to Asia to do the same thing?
Oh yes, absolutely. Not only did I feel at ease about making this big move, but it also reassured my colleagues, my friends, my family, so that everybody knew, like, I wasn't just jumping into it and thinking, I'll just get there, and when I get there, then I'll sort everything out. No, I really felt more calm and at ease, that I knew what was going on and sort of communicated with the people before I got there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it helped you to avoid some sort of problems, that might have appeared on your way.
Oh yes, absolutely. The company was even nice enough. They have an option for accommodation. So when you arrive, or when you start your training with them, they can actually provide you with somewhere to stay, which is good. It's just one less thing to have to worry about when you arrive. So some companies have that and some don't.
And you said you had an interview. Was it just with one company, or like, because you made your decision right away, you were like, okay? Like, did you actually, research the market, and did you compare any other employer,
Yes, I found one or two different options. I received some offers and I compared the working hours and the salaries, and I also asked my TEFL trainers. I sent them the offers and I asked them, does this seem realistic? Is this okay? Because they have so many years of experience, you know. And they sent back to me that it was all, yeah, they were good offers, decent offers. But in the end, I just went for like one serious interview, a Skype interview. And luckily, I actually had a friend that was working for the same company. So I asked her about her experiences, anything I should, you know, look out for. And yeah, I signed on with the same company.
So when you were in the interview, what did they ask you to provide? Like, did they ask you to provide your TOEFL certificate or your degree, or like what kind of documents or certificates do you need in order to score this job?
Okay, so very good question. So they would like to see that you are a qualified TEFL teacher, or you've been trained, so you need your TEFL certificate.
Offline or online?
I think at that stage they like accepted either. Maybe, well, I just didn't want to take a chance, so I did my in-class TEFL, but I think online is still fine. They require a bachelor degree in something, not necessarily education or teaching, but they do require to see the certificate of your degree. And then they also ask you to provide them with a police clearance from your own country.
Right.
And depending on where, you know, it could take some time to organize that.
I've also heard that you can actually get it in Vietnam, but you have to be, I think you have to be registered with the police, like when you move in, and then they can get it for you. But I'm not completely sure how it works, because when I was moving from China to Vietnam, obviously I didn't have the time to go back to Russia and like kind of fetch it there. So they did it somehow.
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah, if it's not ready in time within your own country, you can ask to, yes, yeah.
But still, you have to double check with your employer. Just
everybody. And also something that our company, you'll know, like that they stress a lot, is that the laws in Vietnam can change at the drop of a hat. So your company will inform you whenever there are changes, but yeah, so you need to be on top of your game all the time.
Okay. Sorry, just wanted to make sure that if you do have any questions that are relevant right now, please go ahead and ask them. You can type them in the chat. Maybe that's going to be better rather than everybody speaking at the same time. Sorry, I'm still sick. Okay, so I have another question before I move to the stage in Vietnam. What did you take with you? Like, so you had like, how many suitcases did you have?
Oh, I had one big backpack and one suitcase, and then just a bag for my laptop.
Seriously? That's it?
Yeah, girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm in awe.
They were heavy. They were really heavy. But I realized that, you know, it's Asia. You can buy like everything in Asia, and it's a lot cheaper than back home. And you also don't want to be too stressed with lugging all of your luggage around when you're trying to go into a hostel or accommodation. You don't want to look like or be a security risk. So also, if you have too much luggage on the airplane, you get charged extra. So
yeah, it might be cheaper to get something here than paying for overweight. Yeah, definitely. Okay. And was there anything specific that you took with you to Asia? Because you knew you were moving for a year. So, like, did you take any, I don't know, like medication or maybe some sort of food or spices or anything that you wanted to take with you, just so that you can, you know, comfort yourself?
Yeah. Oh, I think I took one or two special clothing items that I got from like my sister or my mom, just to wear or something. A really, really special book as well that means a lot. And yeah, just my laptop, camera. That's pretty much it.
No medicine.
Oh, luckily I don't really need any medication. So yeah, but if there is something special that you need from your home country that you're not sure of, maybe just in case.
Okay, all
Bring it
right.
from home.
You sound very adventurous. I didn't know this. I did. Yeah, I know, right? We forgot that water in the wine glass. No, it's all right. Actually, I will get it while you speak.
Okay.
So let's move on to you moving to Asia. So could you please describe your first impression of Vietnam? Were you shocked right away? Were you like overwhelmed, or were you just like experiencing this sort of euphoria, or like what kind of feelings did you have? And I'm listening to you. I'm just gonna get some water.
Okay.
They are listening to you.
Hello. Okay. Wow. So my first day in Vietnam, I actually arrived in the evening against the advice of my friend. She said, "You're going to feel so bewildered. Just make sure you arrive in the day." But nevertheless, I arrived at night. Thank you. And she told me about an app to download, like a taxi or Uber app or something, to get myself where I needed to be in the city. And basically, getting from the airport to where I was going to be staying in that accommodation booked by my company was really easy. So I don't know, we can maybe talk about that later. It's not as important, but so getting to Hanoi, which is obviously in the north of Vietnam, yes, bright lights, scooters everywhere, neon signs, nobody wears a helmet, traffic is crazy, the smells are different. It was like nothing I've ever seen before. It's my first time being in Asia, so, and it's so different from South Africa as well. So it was amazing. It was just so different.
And during this time, like the first time of adjusting to this new culture, have you ever had like any pang of regrets? You know, that, oh, maybe I shouldn't have moved here. It's too much. I can't handle it anymore.
Well, I would say that there were definitely times where I felt a little bit alone, a little bit, or just maybe overwhelmed in the moment by, like when I was in a smaller town, I would very often be the only foreigner or Westerner, and maybe those Asian people wouldn't be used to seeing like a person with like lighter hair or different color eyes and facial features. So a lot of the times people would come up to you and like touch your hair or like say, "Oh, hello, hello, hello," you know. So that was, you know, sometimes you laugh and say hello, but other times if you're not having a good day, then you just want it to go away.
It's a little bit of an intrusion into your personal life, right?
But I don't think I ever felt like this was a bad idea or it was a terrible mistake. In fact, if I can say, it's been one of the most amazing and rewarding challenges and things I've ever done in my life. So I don't regret it at all.
Even though sometimes it gets really frustrating.
Oh yes, yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy, and there are definitely waves, you know, where I miss my family or miss certain things about home or the ease of communication when you really need something. Mm-hmm. But there are also times where I feel incredibly grateful, and you know, the standard of living is just, you know, it's really good. We feel happy and comfortable.
Maybe you can comment on this before we move on. Like, what do you mean by standard? I mean, obviously I do understand, but guys here might not understand. Like, yeah, what do you mean? Like, is it in comparison to something, or?
I could say that first of all, in terms of rent or accommodation, your value for money is pretty good. I'm comparing with what I know in South Africa, so I know that I'm definitely getting a bit more for my money here. And then second of all, food and that kind of thing, you know, those type of necessities. I would say generally speaking, depending on what kind of diet you have or needs or something, you can actually also spend less and get more. And then maybe quality of life, it's great. I have like now we both have like a private trainer, however many times a week you want. So I'm able to take care of myself, go to the gym, go eat out in nice restaurants. Not
every single day.
well, not restaurants
that's
every
what I'm
single
doing.
day, but like at least go for a nice coffee and a piece of cake, or you know, your average day feels a little bit fuller, a little bit richer, maybe in comparison to what it would be like at home. Yeah.
So just with the things that you can afford.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can talk about the prices a little bit. So I've got a question. How much money is necessary for the first time? Okay, that's a very good question to take with you. Yeah. So if you're okay with talking about that, it's like, how much money would you recommend taking? I can try to recall what I took. I can definitely not say anything about me moving to Vietnam because I already moved from China, so I had like enough savings. But when I first moved to China, I believe I took around $2,000 around that sum, and it was pretty much enough, I think.
I think
to
it's
cover,
probably that same ballpark for
right?
me as well. Yeah.
Because you just want to feel safe. Sometimes
Yeah.
maybe you don't need that much money, but for instance, in China, you have to pay for 3 months or sometimes even half a year of your rent, plus the deposit, plus sometimes you have to pay the agency, the state agency, I mean, and it just, it adds up to be like a huge sum of your money.
Absolutely.
And just in case like something happens, maybe your employer, I don't know, delays your salary or something like an emergency happens, you don't want to feel too frustrated about it. Okay. So around $2,000.
Yes, I would say so. Like I asked a very similar question when I was
Could you please turn off your mic? Yes, thank you.
yes, so I asked a similar question when I was doing my research, and there really is no definitive answer. It depends on person to person.
On country, on the country.
Yeah, on the country as well. But yeah, just as much as you can, really, just so that you know that you are.
What would be the minimum that you recommend?
What is the exchange rate like? How much is $2,000?
$2,000 is around in millions in dong.
Yeah.
In dong is around 40. This is gonna sound
like
really
80,
strange.
80 million.
No. $1,000 is around 23 million.
Oh, yes.
So what? 46 million.
Oh yes, yeah, 46.
Maybe like a $1,500 at least.
Yeah, $1,500.
Yeah, again, it depends on how much money you like usually spend. Yeah, normally.
Yeah.
Like if you are used to like what kind of diet you have. Yeah. If you are used to eating like imported stuff, if you're okay with eating local food, and things like this. If you're okay with renting, for example, a room, which is what would be the average price for a room?
What, maybe like $5 a night?
Yeah.
I'd
Okay.
say.
True. And what about renting?
Renting, I'd say, depending on maybe $180
for a room.
Yeah. For a room.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would be for a room, like so in a shared house.
Yes.
And apartment would be starting from, well, if it's a studio, like not a brand new one, maybe like $250.
Yeah.
Yeah, $250 around that. That's all in dollars. So here you go. So if it's $250, one thing. If you want your own apartment, and it has to be really nice, maybe in the city center, then you're gonna have to pay around 400 or more.
Yeah.
Like 450 maybe. Sorry. All depends on your expenses for sure. Okay, so let's move on. So we were on the stage of you.
Oh, what, first impression?
Yeah, the first day, right? You were talking about the first day and the fact that it was like all mind-blowing, right? Because there was too many scooters, too much light and things like this. Okay, but you never thought of going back.
Oh no.
Okay.
No, even before I left for Vietnam, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to at least try it for between 6 months and a year, you know, give myself that buffer to just, you know, just try it out, not give up or anything. But so as I say, it wasn't always easy. There were times where I felt, wow, you know, there's a bit of a language barrier, or I don't have as many friends or that many people to talk to. But I never felt like, you know, it's too much, or I can't handle it anymore, or this is just bad. The good things always outweigh the bad stuff. Yeah, definitely.
You just have to remind yourself about it.
Oh, yes, yeah, definitely. Like you can't go into a thing like this with the attitude of, you know, I don't know, everything has got to be my way, or, you know, people must just understand or make way for me. At the end of the day, you are in a new country. You decided to go there for a reason, you know, have new experiences, step outside of your comfort zone, learn new things about yourself. So you have to have these things in mind. And I've definitely, like, I've learned a lot more about myself, how strong I can be, how creative you can be to entertain yourself, make the most out of a situation. So I'll choose it over and over each time.
And like you said, at the end of the day, you are a guest here. Yeah. So
Yes, yeah.
even if something disturbs you, or something like makes you frustrated or pissed off, like you have to remind yourself that this is their country.
Yeah,
like you are an outsider basically.
Yes.
So you have to get used to it. Yeah. Or like you have to deal with it somehow.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start about, as far as I understand, as far as I know, being your friend, you know, you haven't taught before. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, except TOEFL.
Yeah, well, that was just training.
Yeah. So, and you flew in Hanoi and you started teaching right away, or how did it happen for you?
Okay, so this company that we work for, they basically take you into a week of training before you start a little bit of observing and then gradually teaching. So they tell you how to work with the methodology. They watch you and to see if you basically qualify or if you can make it. And then from there, you are sent to the specific center where you're going to work. You observe a little bit, and then you're on your own. Well, not on your own, but then you start teaching. And for me, that's how it was. This is the first teaching experience that I've ever gotten.
Well, you've been a teacher for a year now, so you're quite experienced.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about your training? Like, was it strenuous? Like, or what was actually more stressful for you, the training itself or starting to teach?
Ooh, good one. I would say that the training wasn't easy, because I think that, you know, there was still an element of the job wasn't 100% guaranteed, because you really still had to prove yourself and show that you wanted to be there and that you take it seriously and that you respect the opportunity. So there was a little bit of pressure, and interacting or working with the new methodology and the curriculum and the smart TVs and things like that. That did take a little bit of getting used to. And then what? Sorry?
And then you started to teach, right?
And then I started to teach. Yes.
Was that stressful? Like,
that was stressful,
yeah.
Yes. I've never really interacted as much with young children before. So I was nervous and excited to see what it would be like to work with young kids. But yeah, it wasn't, the first lesson wasn't easy, but it was easier than I thought. Yeah, because once you start doing what you need to do, then you realize, like, okay, it doesn't matter. You know, you start learning their names slowly but surely. And I think in the beginning, you just hope that they leave having learned something new, and, you know.
And did it take your kids long to sort of embrace you into their, because I suppose you were like replacing another teacher, right? So
Yes.
because usually it's like a very I don't know, heartbreaking issue when you're like leaving, the teacher is coming and those kids are like, they're still used to another teaching style or another personality. And
Good question. Yes, in the beginning there were kind of questions like, oh, where is teacher Sarah? Oh no, when is she coming back? She's not coming back. It's teacher Judete now. Yeah, so there were those questions in the beginning, and with children, the great thing is that yes, it does take some time to earn their respect. But I think once you show them a little bit of your personality and that you're not perfect, and obviously it helps to make some jokes and to smile and to be kind and things like that. When you do earn their trust and their respect, then it's fine. Then you can start building on that.
Okay. And I believe that we have forgotten to mention one really important detail, that Judete was actually relocated. You didn't stay in Hanoi, so she went straight away
to the middle of nowhere.
Like rural backwater, so even though, like, so basically you sort of, do you have any, have you had to teach complete beginners? So that's a good question. Let's answer that first.
The only experience that I've had with teaching absolute beginners was when I was covering for a kindergarten teacher within the same center. So those kids were very, very young. They were just learning how to write A, B, and C. But with that, there are a lot of different elements within the lesson. It's not just reading and writing. It's playing some games and dancing and singing songs and things like that. So because young kids obviously have so much energy, they can't just sit and read and write. So have I taught absolute beginners? Yes. But they were really young. So it's not just reading and writing, it's lots of activities and games and songs and exercises.
And what would be your like average age frame? Like, what is the earliest age have you ever taught on a regular basis?
I would say probably around 7 years old. So right now where I'm teaching, what I'm actually most of the time is between 7 and maybe 12 years old. So it's a good
Okay.
Yeah.
So encompasses like young children that are still excited about learning new stuff, and then guys who are like
kids that you can really start seeing their personality coming through and them
sometimes too much.
Yeah, developing their own opinions and that kind of thing. It's really great to see how that whole thing starts evolving. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about you, because most likely, I don't know if we're talking about Vietnam now or Asia in general, but most likely almost everybody who's gonna move to Asia, at first they will have to start in a little town, somewhere like in a second tier, or so. How was it? Was it different to Hanoi? Was it more overwhelming or less? Was it more stressful, or did you find peace there, and harmony? And did you feel lonely there? Like, yeah, lots of deep questions.
That's a deep one, girl. That's a deep one. Yes, so once I finished my initial training week in Hanoi, I was relocated to a very small town about 80 kilometers outside of the city. And yes, it was pretty much a day and night difference. So it went from buildings everywhere and taxis and buses and to buffaloes on the side of the road and shaggy buildings and not as great roads. So the infrastructure was obviously not as great as in the city, which is not that always that great either. And I think the absolute main difference besides that was the fact that here in Hanoi there's a really large teaching community. foreigners, from all over the world. But in the town that I stayed in, I could count on my one hand the number of foreigners in the town. So there was no social life unless you felt like getting a beer after a long day at work with the only two other teachers that you lived with. In terms of finding somewhere to stay or accommodation options, the Vietnamese people were a little bit reluctant to lease a property to foreigners because they didn't have that much interaction with them.
They didn't trust.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe they just didn't stay long term enough, so they didn't see it being worth the trouble of going through everything. So there was basically one house that myself and the other teachers were staying in. So we shared a house, which was nice in a sense because at least we were together in being alone. Having said that, living in that small town really also gave me lots of room to breathe. So a defining moment for me living there was when I bought my own bicycle and I just cycled everywhere. I cycled around the big lakes. I got lost in a different part of town. I would sometimes put in my earphones and cycle and sing and buy my own groceries. So with all of that, separation from everything else came a lot of freedom, which was very, very rewarding as well.
Okay, so, well, you already started talking about freedom, but I actually wanted to ask you if you ever felt like you were trapped, because sometimes, right, when you don't have like enough of a foreign influence there, nobody speaks English, you cannot really get anything imported. Did you ever feel trapped there?
I would say the only time where I felt a little bit isolated or really isolated was when I came back from a holiday or a weekend away that I took, and I got really sick. And my company did help me. One of the teaching assistants went with me to the local hospital, but I was trying to explain my symptoms to them. And the thing with Vietnam, or when you go to a Vietnamese hospital, is that they are very thorough. So they'll do lots of different tests. They'll take x-rays, they will draw blood, they might ask you for like a urine sample. So they'll check ear, nose, and throat and everything, even though you might know what's wrong. They'll just check everything just in case. So getting...
Sorry, did you have to pay for all of that?
Yes, it wasn't an exorbitant amount of money, but yes, I did have to pay.
So the insurance didn't cover it?
No, even the health insurance that we are provided with now, I don't think is that adequate. You would maybe need to get your own on top of what your company provides you with. Yeah.
So they did all those tests, and
they did all those tests, and at the end of the day, I think it just turned out to be maybe exhaustion or fatigue, and maybe some change of season, kind of cold or flu symptoms. So I just really needed a lot of rest, and it might just be because it does take a bit of a toll on your body moving to a different place and adjusting to so many new factors. So I think I just needed a lot of rest.
Okay, so that helped?
It did help, yeah.
And you recovered eventually?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, and how did your employer react to this? Like, because you had to take some days off, right?
Yes, they were actually, they were quite supportive. So they wanted me to recover and everything. It was just like logistically, it was difficult because we were so removed from the big city and possible substitute teachers. We really had to find a way to juggle different classes so that, kids didn't miss school, or that we had teachers to teach because we were such a small number. So the logistics were a little bit difficult. So, yeah.
Okay, I have another question. So I'm thinking while we're still on the topic of this small town, we can talk about food, because here in Hanoi, to be honest, it's not a problem. It's not an issue at all, because they have so many different Western cafes, restaurants,
Oh,
other
yeah.
coffee shops. You can get pretty much any food, like any cuisine.
You're pretty spoiled for choice.
Yeah, there are vegan buffets there, which we love, by the way. Yeah, this is the best thing ever about Vietnam. And there are cheap places, there are expensive places, there are like luxury places, there's street food, like anything. But whenever you're in a smaller town, then obviously it becomes an issue.
Oh, yes.
So how did you manage with that? Because how much time did you spend in that town?
I think I spent around 2.5, maybe 3 months.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's enough to starve.
Oh, yeah, girl. Luckily, there was one big sort of central mall or shopping center that we could go to. But in the beginning, because you're adjusting so much to everything, and because you can't necessarily find the exact same things that you would find back home, you kind of forget what it is that you would usually eat, or now your staple food might have to change just a little bit. Like for me, for example, when I lived in South Africa, I didn't really eat rice or noodles or things like that. And here it's like, it's everywhere. Obviously, it's Asia. So it took a little bit of time to remember, okay, what do I need? And what do I feel like cooking? Do I even have the energy? Because there's just so much new everywhere. But I managed to, in the beginning, I just started simple, whether it would be like making an omelette, some scrambled eggs, or maybe a sandwich with just something, I don't know, maybe some peanut butter and banana kind of thing.
You can have peanut butter in that small town.
Yes, well, when I eventually found peanut butter, I was like, yeah, it was a big.
Expressive. Was that Big C?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
yes.
We have like a huge like hypermarket, or how would you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like where you could get anything. And wow, you had that.
Well, I had to cycle 5 kilometers out of town to get that peanut butter, but it was worth it.
Oh, well, of course, because then peanut butter, has a lot of calories. So.
Oh, yeah. But it was, and just to add to that, or on that note, because you are like away from all of the usual things that you actually take for granted, having access to things like peanut butter or being able to buy a real slab of chocolate, it made it so much more worth it. It was special. Like special. And my friends, knowing that I cycled 5 or 10 kilometers to buy them like a special chocolate, when I brought it home, it was like awesome, because I don't know, so in that way it was kind of refreshing to have a chance to try something completely new and just have a change of routine, because after all, that's why you move to a different country in the first place, because you're tired of doing the same thing every day. So not all bad.
That's a good one. Okay, so I think we're going to talk about teaching a little bit later. Now we can maybe just talk about why exactly did you move to Hanoi? Like you're saying that you kind of like you settled down there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were doing pretty well. What forced you into moving to Hanoi, or was there some sort of special situation that provoked you?
Whoa.
No.
Whoa. Okay. I will say this. So while it was really good to get a little bit of separation from everything. Oh, there's a new question. Maybe you can read it. So while it was really nice to get away from everything Western and busy, and I did also feel like the one thing that I started missing out on a little bit was social interaction. I did form like 1 or 2 close bonds with the girls that I lived with. We really supported each other, and we were all that we had. So that was good. But, you need to talk to some more people. You can't just have the same 1 or 2 people in your social circle every day. You go to work with them, and then you come home and you cook dinner next to them, or you have a beer with them, or you go to the shopping market with them as well. So I really felt in the end that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to move. And also, if I wanted to take some time off and explore different parts of Vietnam, there weren't many transport options to get out of the city. So the accessibility thing was also a big issue. So I think
so you
those
just
two
feel a little bit trapped.
a little bit trapped, yeah.
And there's no Grab, right? We have like in Vietnam, or actually in Asia.
Oh,
well,
yeah,
right?
probably in Asia.
There is an app which is called Grab, and it's sort of like Uber, right? But it's usually with motorbikes, and it's super convenient and
It's the best,
yeah, and very cheap. But they don't have those.
Yeah, in the smaller cities, they are not really like, they don't really use them. They just use local taxi services and say guys that have their own little motorbikes that you can hop onto, but you have to
It's a little fishy.
negotiate the price, and they usually really scam you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because you're white.
Which happened to me.
Yeah. Aw.
Oh, girl. It's a webinar for another time.
Well, you do get scammed all the time.
Yeah,
like,
that is
especially in
true.
the first few months, because you don't really know like what the prices are.
Exactly.
Okay, we have another question before we go on about you moving to Hanoi. So it's about raw vegan lifestyle, which I'm super excited to talk about because, shall I announce it?
Yes, you may.
Yay! So may I say I have inspired Judete to become vegetarian. None of us is a raw vegan, unfortunately.
Maybe not yet.
Yes, not yet. Yes, maybe we're just on the way. But we are vegetarian now, both of us. So could you please tell us about, like, you actually only turned vegetarian like 1 week ago.
Yeah, a week and a half.
But how has it been? Like, is it difficult? I'm not sure about raw vegan, but I'm pretty sure if you can find like lots of vegan food here, then, maybe we can, well, at least vegan. So we're not sure about raw. Like raw, maybe you can just buy fruits. Yeah, there's loads of fruits. Yeah, and veggies and lots of markets. But we can talk about vegan stuff.
Okay. Well, so I decided to make the transition to being vegetarian for a few different reasons. It sort of just came to me one day, and I decided, okay, So to cut to the chase, it's really easy to do it here. Like Julia mentioned, there are fruits everywhere, freely available. There are many different eateries and buffets available and stuff. There's an abundance of different like leaves and types of spinach, and just there are a lot of different vegetables growing here, and they are also really creative with the way that they make their food. So I honestly haven't been feeling like I'm missing out on anything. In fact, I have more energy than I have had for a long time. Like, there's so many different results that I've been seeing, and yeah, I can highly recommend it.
Yeah, and those vegan buffets, they actually are super popular among foreigners, not necessarily among locals. Vegetarians.
Because it's just such good food.
Yeah, and it's super cheap.
Yes,
it's like 45K, which is $2 or even less. And you get like a huge plate of food with rice and veggies and tofu and what else, nuts and like
like lettuce wraps or like
soup.
Even Vietnamese vegetarian food is also, they are super creative. So
yeah, and every single buffet is actually different, right?
Yes, everyone has something different to offer.
Yeah,
so it's very easy, and you don't feel left out of anything, really.
Yeah, not at all. I'm not sure if we actually answered your question because it's about raw vegan, but at least we tried, at least from whatever we know from our own experience. Okay, so you moved to Hanoi, and did you feel any relief, or because you were like, yay, finally I'm among foreigners and people who I can actually talk to?
Definitely. It also took some time to adjust. I think I went from the one extreme to the other, kind of, because I went from being in a very small town to moving to like the epicenter of where all the expats live. So from no foreigners to all the foreigners. So that also was a little bit strange once again. What else can I say?
All right,
Sure.
but also no regrets.
No regrets. No. I just felt like I graduated from doing the difficult thing.
It was your trial period.
Out in the sticks, yeah. And now I had way more options, like an abundance of options. Where did I want to eat? How I wanted to spend my free time. I started really working on an amazing routine and schedule where I could exercise enough and go and run around the lake and, join different activities and that kind of thing. And slowly, like, the social aspect started coming back, meeting other teachers and working in a larger center. So yeah, that was nice. So no regrets there either.
Mm-hmm. Okay, should we move on to teaching?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel about teaching now? Let's start with this.
Well, in comparison to...
Yeah, like a year ago when you first started.
Okay. Well, yeah, as I think I mentioned earlier, in the beginning, the methodology is very it feels a little bit abstract and strange, and it takes time to get used to. And in the beginning, your student management or your time management isn't great. You take very long to do small things, and you're not as effective with how you want to get your point across. A year later, I love it. Honestly, it's so inspiring, and I think one of the main reasons why is because you get to work with young people, and you remember what it feels like to be inspired and to be excited about something, or to see someone progressing in something, or how you have actually taught someone to do something or to think for themselves. Or so I think that, along with the fact that you start to feel more comfortable with your role, it's amazing. I didn't think I would enjoy it this much. So yeah, did I answer your question?
Yes, definitely you did. Are you considering teaching in the future?
Perhaps, I don't know. I think yes. I think once you sort of have the basic principle down of what kind of environment you want your classroom to be, and how you can interact with students, I think you can maybe take it to, I don't know, a different country or a different type of environment. So I think really the opportunities are endless.
Okay.
Yeah,
Definitely. And while we're on this note, could you please compare, I know that you haven't taught in South Africa, but you definitely know something about the education there, right? So maybe you can compare Asian schools with South African schools. Like, is there a lot of difference there? Is it striking, or is it somewhere similar? What about the kids? Is it easier to control them, or they are like more rowdy, more unruly, or they're actually very diligent? I don't know. What's the difference?
Well, I will try and speak from what I know, but I think maybe one thing that is similar between Vietnam and South Africa, or whichever school, is maybe if it's a lower income school, like if the children have certain circumstances, if it's more difficult for them, then I think it will be more difficult to teach in general. I have heard of schools where it's because of the circumstances or whatever, maybe in South Africa it's more difficult to teach because there's just a lot of different things going on in each child's life. Okay, so if we move on from that, well, we work in an English center, so not so much public school. But okay, so what I can say about somewhere like South Africa is the average salary of a teacher in South Africa is definitely lower than what I am earning as an English teacher here in Vietnam. And with that, I also think, or I believe, that my working hours are significantly less than what is happening in South Africa. I think that the teachers there have a lot more to deal with in terms of, not only teaching the kids there in certain schools, not all schools, lots of life lessons along with whichever curriculum, they have. So there's a lot more that goes into their teaching than just actual, coursework. So bottom line, they have to put a lot more hours in, and the salaries are not as high. Whereas here, the teaching hours are way lower. There's way less prep, almost even no lesson planning required. And yeah, the salaries are really, really, really reasonable, like pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Especially for the expenses. Yeah,
especially for the expenses, yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And so would you say that the teaching here is pretty chill? Like you don't really experience any stress or like,
yeah.
When you don't have to put too much effort into it because lots of things are done for you.
Touché. Okay, what I will say is this, and this question actually comes up a lot amongst the teachers that are here in Vietnam and in different parts of Asia. But this is how I feel. I feel that it is as serious as you take it, or it is as much of a real job as you decide it to be. So if you go into it with the attitude of, it's just like they won't even know if I'm making a mistake, or that is what it will be for you. And I don't think that you will learn anything out of that experience then. But if you take it on as a challenge and see how well you can do, and see how much your students can learn from you, and how much you want to invest in these kids, and like we've often said, especially just the other day, you have to remember that these parents are really trusting in you and the whole company that you're associated with, to teach their kids something. They're, paying you good money. So why wouldn't you want to give your best? And oh girl. So yeah, it's really, if you decide that you want to make a career out of it and see it as an opportunity, it can open so many doors. And that's exactly what I've learned from you. And like, it's just, yeah, there are so many different things that can come your way if you have the right attitude about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to so any like sort of challenges that you might have come across throughout your teaching experience. For instance, let me start with the first one, which is those children do not speak, well, some of them a word of English, some of them maybe a little bit, little to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you manage with this? I believe this is actually one of the most common questions because everybody's like freaking out, like, how am I supposed to explain anything to them if, I don't know, worse comes to worse? Like you usually have your native language in order to communicate something to them, like in order to calm them down. And here it's like, that's it. You only have English. And if you're trying to get across your point and they can't, then so what do you do in this situation?
Wow. Okay. Well, I definitely say the very first thing that comes to mind is you have to look at your body language and your behavior. You have to try and give off a feeling of being calm, and they shouldn't be frightened by you. I think that would be my very first instinct, to just sort of take a step back and to make sure that you're exuding the right kind of thing. From there, if you are actually trying to teach them something, I think a lot of positive energy, and not to try and focus on quantity so much, but rather just a few words, like if you're starting with like ABC or something. a lot of actions, a lot of like exaggerated kind of, you know, apple and crocodile, or like, you know, bee and cat, you know, get a little bit silly, you know, be very animated kind of thing, you know, repeat it often. And yeah, I don't know if I can say much more than that.
Have you ever had any situations when you're trying to explain something, but kid just wouldn't get it, and what did you do?
Maybe I would try and find a kid, a student in the class that was maybe a little bit older, or someone that I could maybe make a connection with, and ask them, or maybe speak to them first, or see if they can understand, and then tell them to tell this kid what I want from them. So maybe something like that, taking a more mature student and asking them to be like the translator or the mediator. But if it's been a little bit more of a tough situation, or tricky, or the kid is just a bit crazy, then they are usually, I don't know, a teaching assistant or something that can come to your aid. You know, you don't always want to use them. You want to try and see if you can, you know, resolve whatever's going on. But usually there are some teaching assistants there to help
Who speak both English and Vietnamese.
Both English and Vietnamese.
Okay.
Yeah.
But would you say that this issue is actually a little bit exaggerated?
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Did you feel like this when you were first moving to Vietnam? Were you like freaked out by the fact that you wouldn't be able to speak any of your, like any of Afrikaans, for example, to them, or they wouldn't be able to speak English to you? Did you actually have this fear of, or you didn't even think about it?
Yeah, I didn't think. I think it definitely wasn't a fear. I think it was just sort of. It was always going to be amusing to see like how it was going to play out, but I never felt like, oh my goodness, it's going to be terrible if this. I mean, it's just at the end of the day, it's okay. You know, it's English class. It's not life or death situation, and they will come back again next week, and you can pick up where you left off, kind of thing. So I think small steps. You know. You can't be perfect like every single lesson, you know, get everything 100%, but you can make small improvements if you see, you know, where you need to work on, just improve every time.
I just wanted to touch upon our training center, which is definitely special. I mean, you know, it differs from one to one, but still, would you mind commenting on like what kind of, like, what do they provide you with, you know? Are you just completely on your own, or do you have any support? I mean, like, do they provide you with some sort of curriculum, maybe like textbooks and things like this?
Wow, yes, okay. I really feel lucky
Me too.
about the, you know, the company that I work for. They've been really supportive throughout the entire journey, really, from communicating with them before I moved here, you know, until I touched down in Vietnam, all through the training week, all through the time where I spent in the small town. They've helped with, you know, transport arrangements, living arrangements. They, as we mentioned, they do give you the curriculum. So you know what you have to teach, and there's a specific kind of way that they would like it carried out, but you can mix it up a little bit. You can add more of your own ideas in there, and then besides that, and also there's support from your faculty manager or your head teacher. You know, as long as you try to keep the communication open, it always feels like there can be a way to work around something. I've never felt like this is the end. Nobody's helping me. I feel so alone. No, I've never felt like that. And then in terms of what they actually offer, which is also amazing, either, well, the case at the moment is obviously the salary is really competitive. You do, depending on where you live, you can receive a housing stipend. So basically, where they give you a little bit of extra money on top of your salary to pay for your accommodation. They do give you like really basic health insurance, which covers a little bit. What else? Oh, they give you a visa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, which is important,
They
right?
give you a
Yeah,
visa.
by the way, what kind of visa?
What kind of visa am I on? So like you have to receive like a business invitation letter, and this is what you present when you come into Vietnam, and you give them this, and then you come in on that, and
And then just stamp it upon arrival.
Yeah, they give you that kind of business visa. And then later you get your work permit and your residency, temporary and then permanent, temporary residency card.
Yeah, I think it's temporary.
Temporary.
We're not permanent, yet.
Temporary for 2 years, right?
2 years, yeah, that's true. 2 years,
yeah.
And again, you needed all those documents that we talked about in the very beginning.
Yes.
Together.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So why did we decide? Oh, yes, they provide you with visa. And what about like lessons themselves? Do they provide you with? Do you have to create your own classes? How much time does it take to prepare for them? And I'll read it.
Okay.
Just move on.
So as I mentioned, the teaching material is provided. So there are obviously different levels of students, from beginner to intermediate and more advanced and so on. So each lesson is there for you with its, all of the resources and so on. And in the beginning, when I was still getting used to everything, I pretty much just stuck to that. But now that I feel I want to, invest more and prepare more and have my students be more engaged, I've taken it upon myself to get extra resources together, do more research to find more fun speaking activities, so that they retain the information better. So you can sort of get away with doing the bare minimum. The kids will still learn something, but if you really want them to remember the classes and have a good time and have fun, you put in more because you want them to actually enjoy it and have it be relevant to their lives. So you can definitely spice it up more.
But then it's still very rewarding, right?
Oh yes, yeah. You feel even better when you see like what you've put together aside from what there was, that they really enjoyed it. That's a great feeling also.
Okay, shall we answer this question? I read some job ads and all of them require native speakers. Do I need, all right, that's a big issue. Do I need to act like I'm a teacher from an English speaking country, or is it enough to have good English and pronunciation? All right. All right. Well, how about you just say what you think, and then
I'll speak from my perspective. Yes. That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Right. If I have my facts straight, I think it is easier for a native speaker to get a job. That is what some of the companies are looking for, and in some ways I agree with it, in some ways I agree with it, and in some ways I don't agree with it, because some people have taken the opportunity for granted in the past, where they just land a job because they are maybe from the UK or somewhere, wherever it may be, but they don't really take the job seriously, which I don't agree with. Okay, I don't know how much more I can say than that, really. It's generally speaking, I think it is easier for a native speaker to get a job, but I definitely know of a few different people who are not native speakers that have also been really successful in finding really good, well-paying jobs as well. Well, yes, of course, and housemates of mine that I live with and have lived with in Vietnam already. So it is definitely possible for both native and non-native speakers to get good jobs. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it might be just a little bit more challenging, and maybe you're going to have to live up to some sort of expectations, right? So they wouldn't
Perhaps.
take you if you have like a very strong accent, or if you don't have any teaching experience or education. So you have to sort of like make up, for the fact that you're not a native speaker.
Yeah, like it's not just anybody that you can't just, you need some sort of, I don't know, like you said, maybe it's a degree, or maybe it's a TEFL certificate. Most of the time they do require a teaching certificate.
Yeah, true. And I would just say that it's definitely more challenging in Vietnam than in China, because I guess because like just the demand in China is just so high that they just are not possible. Like it's not possible to cover it. Yeah,
to keep up with that.
Yeah. But whereas in Vietnam, especially in the big cities, like it's they don't really need like that many teachers in comparison to China, of course. But worst case scenario, I think even if you can find a job, for instance, in Hanoi, they would always be willing to just relocate you into a smaller town, and it's still a nice experience, right? And actually, when I was when I first started teaching here for this company, I was also relocated into a smaller town, and all of the teachers there were non-native. There was this guy from Uganda. Uganda. How do you say? Uganda. Yeah, and then actually there was an Australian, but also there was another Russian girl. It's definitely not a very frequent case here in Hanoi, right? Especially in our company, but outside of Hanoi, it's definitely possible. And I still have lots of acquaintances that are non-native, and they just work for different companies like ILA and Apollo, and what else is there, like different,
what, Language Link perhaps?
Language Link, and just public schools, kindergartens, right? And
absolutely.
It's definitely possible. You just need to have something to offer to your employer.
Yes, what can you bring to the table, why choose you?
To make them interested in you. For sure. I don't know if that was a good answer, but let us know if you have any other things that we need to clarify. Okay, so I just wanted to ask you just a couple more questions, and I'll stop torturing you. So what do you think you have learned, like throughout this year? I mean, for now, I'm going to ask you something more spiritual in the future, but for now, I'm asking like skills. Is there anything that you have like taken up? Something that maybe you have never thought of doing, before, but now you're like any skills. Like for example, driving a motorbike.
Ooh, what skills? Okay, yes, the motorbike thing, absolutely. So if anybody's ever been to Hanoi or Vietnam, like traffic is not exaggerated. It is how they say it is. It's crazy. She was on the back tonight, like she usually is. We drive to work together and home sometimes. It's crazy. So I feel really proud of myself, the fact that I drive to work every day. Thank heavens I've been safe so far. But
that was it was a different story.
And so that is extremely liberating, and I feel so proud of myself for being able to navigate myself around the city and different parts of Vietnam. So that is an incredible life lesson that I've learned to do. Ride a scooter and a semi-automatic bike, navigate and be safe on the roads. That's one thing.
And can I just point out that even though you did say that the traffic here is not exaggerated, it's like that's how it is, but also at the same time there are two different perspectives, like because sometimes when you're like outside of the traffic, you just like you're too overwhelmed. It's a little too much, it's too hectic. But when you're inside,
it is different. You're actually right. Maybe I was a little bit but from the outside, maybe if you're a pedestrian or something,
it's like chaos.
It is intimidating. but I think, yeah, once you are in the flow of it and you focus on where you need to go, and if you know, still spatially aware, then it's really fine. And also, you know, with that, the average driving speed is not fast. So everybody is on a scooter. There's scooters everywhere, and there's some buses and so on. But the driving speed is generally around between 30 kilometers per hour and 40. So there's a lot going on, but it's not fast, so it's not that dangerous.
So even if there is an accident, usually it's just like a closed shave, yeah, like nothing.
Sometimes,
nothing too much.
but yeah, there are a lot of cases where people who don't wear helmets, you know, they get more seriously injured because of the mere fact that they're not wearing helmets.
Yeah.
So,
well, I've heard some stories of people losing limbs and things like this.
Okay,
but, we're not gonna go into that. But that would be mostly also because of their own stupidity.
Yes, yeah. You have to be aware all the time. Expect the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. My one of the last questions is going to be about Vietnam, like about maybe places that people could see here, and if it's worth coming here, not just, you know,
in a teaching capacity.
Yeah, but also in maybe in the search of, I don't know, like a richer traveling experience, like it's.
Oh yes, where to begin? Okay, let's start at the literal top. Ha Giang, okay, Ha Giang province. So this area was actually made famous by a show in the UK called Top Gear, where the guys,
Are you serious?
Yes, yeah, they did.
That's absolutely new for me. Okay.
A little bit controversial, but anyway, so there is an amazing like loop of road that you can drive in Ha Giang, which is the most northern point of Vietnam on the border of China, with exquisite landscapes, valleys and gorges and rivers, and it was, as I've said to you many times, it was a life-changing experience, and you do it all on a motorbike. You can either drive yourself if you feel like confident enough, or you can hire a driver and you sit on the back, and you just soak up all of the beautiful scenery. You can live in little homestay accommodation things like Vietnamese houses on stilts and eat the ethnic minority food, and so that in itself is like amazing.
Yeah, there's a reason why you did it twice.
Oh yes, yeah, it's absolutely
almost back to back.
Yeah. It's really like that almost in itself has made Vietnam really like worth it. And then of course there's Ha Long Bay and Cat Ba Island, you know, nice for a little bit of, I don't know, beach time or climbing some mountains and so on. Oh, and Sapa, and then in Sapa they've got the highest mountaintop, well, they call it the roof of Indochina, and it's called Phan, and it's 3,143 meters above sea level. Really gorgeous views, yeah. And how about our favorite place that we've been to together?
Okay.
Dalat.
It's a different place. No, oh my gosh. Okay. Oh,
you talk about Dalat. You tell
Dalat.
Dalat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dalat is in the north.
No, it's like
in the south. Oh my gosh. Okay, yes, that's true. Actually, that's what I meant. I just confused those. Yeah. Okay, in the south. Yeah, kind of close to Nha Trang.
Yeah. I'd say between Nha Trang and Ho Chi Minh.
Yes, somewhere in between. Yeah, so a little bit more, like closer to the border with Laos, right?
I'd say so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's in the mountains, and it's just like absolutely gorgeous, right? It's just such a huge change. Like it's like nothing else in Vietnam, because there are pine trees there. Just the whole nature is like it has this sort of northern vibe to it, right? And it's just all the buildings are like colonial style, and people are different, and there are so many nice places there. We're like literally blown away by it.
Yeah, amazing coffee. Yeah, and like food was fabulous, and beautiful big lakes, and Oh man, favorite place.
Oh my gosh, yes. We actually were thinking about moving there.
Oh,
eventually,
we
yes.
are? No, I'm just kidding.
Huh?
I'm just kidding.
Ah,
Yes, yes.
oh, would you? Okay,
Yes.
all right. All right, then Phong Nha goes
Phong
to...
Nha, okay, Phong Nha, also a little bit, closer towards the middle south,
Mhm.
famous for its amazing caves everywhere. Paradise Cave, what other caves?
That's like the biggest cave in the world, Song Dung or something.
Song Dung.
Mhm. Yeah, we still cannot speak Vietnamese. You can a little bit.
Yeah. And just besides the caves themselves, just beautiful landscapes, super tropical. We cycled with really old bicycles through the countryside and up and down the hills, and then we decided to rent motorbikes, which is the better idea. So just great landscapes. You really get a feel for the authentic Vietnam, and also some more buffaloes on the side of the road, and that was really special. Yeah, those nice caves and things like that.
There's also Ninh Binh.
Ninh Binh, yeah, very close to Hanoi. If you have a day or so,
Yeah, it can be a day trip. Yeah, there's so many places to visit here, and that's only in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also very easy to go anywhere else, like to Laos, for instance, or to Thailand, or even China. You can actually cross the border with China by train, as far as I know. And okay, one question that just appeared in my head while we were talking is about the Vietnamese language.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I know, you do speak much better than me, but still it's not enough to actually communicate to people. So how do you get around? Is it complicated in Hanoi, and was it complicated in a smaller town?
I think it's definitely a lot easier to get around in Hanoi as opposed to the smaller town. And I think the main reason for maybe the difficulty in communication, even if you do learn to speak Vietnamese, what I've heard a lot of the time is that Vietnamese people are only used to hearing perfect sounding Vietnamese. So when we as foreigners try to communicate with them, even in their own language, because the language is so tonal and so specific to the area, they first of all don't think of you being able to speak Vietnamese. And second of all, your Vietnamese is definitely not like a native Vietnamese speaking person. So that combination is just a disaster. But having said that, it's easier to communicate with people in Vietnamese in Hanoi because there are more foreigners that they've been exposed to that try to speak Vietnamese, more tourists. So they've sort of started bending their ear a little bit to try and figure out what they might be saying. So even though my accent might not be perfect, and it has also taken time to I don't know, adjust and really listen, I can say certain things and they will understand. But for the most part, if they don't understand my Vietnamese, just generally going back to the basics, lots of hand gestures. You can show things like pictures on your phone. You can do Google Translate. So I haven't really ever had a problem getting around. So, and before I came to Vietnam, I didn't study anything, which was maybe a bit ignorant on my part, but I never felt like...
You didn't even know Xin Chao, which is hello in Vietnamese?
I didn't even, and my friend actually tried to send me a few words, but of course, maybe you learn it, but then when you get there, you sort of, everything just, you forget everything because you're so overwhelmed. So, but it's okay, it takes time. I can speak to someone now, I can say, hello, my name is, and I'm an English teacher, and how are you today? And I can count and I can say names of food and some places. So it's taken a while, but I can say some stuff.
Well, I actually admire you in terms of speaking Vietnamese because I think I only know even numbers 1 to 5. I can't even seem to remember 10 numbers. Okay, so I feel like, we haven't answered any questions that people might have asked, like more, but unfortunately this time, there's this connection problem. So maybe you could, come the second time.
Yes, definitely. It was a lot of,
Yeah, if we,
amazing.
okay. And let's just wrap it up maybe by saying something like, how can you encourage people? Because I know that there are so many people that are scared, that are that have lots of doubts, apprehensive, and they just literally, like, they really want to go. They have like this huge burning desire inside of them, but something still prevents them. Maybe you can say something that will inspire them and will kind of urge them to pack up and move right away.
Ooh, we've got one here. Is it possible to have one? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about that later. You can just send me a private message, okay? And we can just chat about that in a little while.
Okay, so shall I say my
Well,
thing?
if you have come up with it.
Oh yes, it'll come out
like
just off the cuff.
motivational speech.
So as I said in the very beginning, this investment in like getting my TEFL certificate way back has been one of the best decisions I've ever made, because even if I decide tomorrow that I want to leave Vietnam, there are so many options that are open to me. But in terms of being here specifically, I really sincerely have not regretted it. I'm so grateful for all of the people that I've met, how helpful they've been, the amazing stories that I've heard from other people. Not only just that, it's one of the first times in my life where I've been able to really play around with my schedule to fill it with things, that I really feel are important to me, like my health, making decisions around that, making decisions around my fitness, incorporating a social life and getting balance in that way, being able to save money and still live comfortably at the same time. And then more than that, I really have stepped out of my comfort zone so much. I've learned about myself. I've gone through some very difficult situations and I've come out even better on the other side. So, hell no, I will never look back on this experience and feel an ounce of regret. It's not easy, but it is worth it.
Yes.
It is worth it.
True.
So,
and would you say that your fears were actually a little bit unfounded? And if you do get the chance to move to a different country now, I mean, after having lived in Vietnam, you will be like at ease,
Oh
yeah.
Yes. I think that Vietnam, with all of its quirks and it's an amazing place to live. Like, there are difficult things around it, but I've never felt unwelcome or scared or anything like that. I feel like it is an amazing place, and maybe it's even underrated or people don't know enough about it, but it has so much to offer. So I can only speak highly of it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Judete.
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure. So actually, sometimes I would even forget that we were doing it publicly. I was like, okay, this is such a nice conversation, and I'm learning more about you. So another advantage is that you get to meet lots of cool people from all over the world.
Oh yes, this is new to me.
Yeah, super international community here.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's literally midnight right now. We're gonna leave now. Thank you so much for listening to us, those 4 people, but I will be posting the recording as soon as possible. And everybody have a good night, and hopefully we'll see Judete one more time, maybe if she grants us with this opportunity. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Cheers.
Mon hai ba. Go.